What is happening, y'all? Cowboy here, and earlier today, the Duskbloods was announced at the Nintendo Switch Showcase. Now, truth be told, I wasn't really planning on getting a Switch 2. I barely touch my Switch as is, but the fact that there is a new FromSoft exclusive that's coming to it, which is basically the spiritual successor to Bloodborne, now I have to get a Switch 2. But either way, let's take a look at the trailer, and then I got the press release up along with the official website. We're going to have more news coming for this on Friday, but I already have a ton of people asking about it, so let's cover what we know so far. And the first thing we're going to do is just let the trailer play through.
I give you my blood. I give you my life. Turn, O wheel, and transport him to a night of moonlight, to humanity's very dusk.
Close your eyes and contemplate now the moon, as befits the soon-to-depart.
I pray that you are able, carrier of blood.
Tears will flow for one, and one alone.
So, as you can see, lots and lots of Bloodborne vibes going on here. Very similar era. We have blood as a central theme. It seems we play some type of vampire. And it's coming in 2026, so we got a while until this comes out, but this is the big thing. Only available, or kill the camera, only available on Nintendo Switch 2, which, gonna be honest, little disappointed by that, but it is what it is. So we got the press release here. This is from the FromSoftware Japanese site, fromsoft.jp, WW press release. Announced the new online multiplayer action game, the Duskbloods. So, online multiplayer action, I want to call attention to that because it looks like this is probably going to be similar to what we're getting with Night Rain. Developed for Nintendo Switch 2, the Duskbloods is a PvPvE title with online multiplayer at its core, where up to 8 players vie for supremacy among themselves and against challenging foes. Play as the Bloodsworn, a group that has transcended human strength thanks to their special blood, and throw yourself into a violent fray for first blood as the twilight of humanity approaches. Release is currently set for 2026. We hope you look forward to it. And then we have the official sites over here, which has the announcement trailer that we just watched. This is the same thing that we just went through a moment ago. Software for a Nintendo Switch is PvPvE based multiplayer action game in which up to 8 players can fight each other and fight against enemies. Players become Twilight Blood Clan, who have gained powers beyond, very similar to what we're getting out of the press release. An interview with the director about the concept and worldview of this work, Creator's Voice, will be released Friday, April 4th at 10 p.m. Now, more than likely, that's going to be Friday, April 4th, 10 p.m. Japan time, so that'll be earlier in the day over here on the East Coast. And I think they're showing off a lot of the main characters in the trailer. I think this is, you know, like I said, this to me, this has vibes very similar to what we are getting with Night Rain. So I think this is meant to be one of our protagonists. We saw this lady attacking a little bit later in the trailer where she was on the bridge. Yeah, right here. So I think that's another potential protagonist. We can see this guy earlier in the trailer as well. He was looking at the big moon right here and right here using a spell. So I think that's another one of our potential guys. And then we have the weird rocket jetpack man. Now I love FromSoftware. Obviously I play everything they make. But I'm really interested to learn more about this because PvPvE, that kind of lines up with what we see in like extraction shooters. You know, think of stuff like Tarkov, for example. I think is probably the most prominent game out there with that type of model, where you're not only competing against players, but you're also competing against enemies in the environment. And I mean, we have seen a couple games that are more in the action RPG genre that have adopted this. Quite a few recently that were more like first-person dungeon crawler type games that got a fair amount of popularity. And to be honest, I will say I have a couple concerns. You know, obviously when it comes to FromSoft games, one of the things I love the most is the exploration and, you know, being able to just get lost in that world and explore. And that definitely took some time to adjust to with Night Rain, because we didn't have that in Night Rain. Night Rain is very much turbo mode, go, go, go. And, you know, you don't get that exploration. You need to just blast your way through the game, killing the bosses, getting your upgrades, kill the Night King, boom, it's done. It's supposed to be fast in and out. And, you know, once you adjust to it, I don't think it's terrible, but it's definitely a very big departure. And so I'm curious on how they are going to play this out, because I mean, just seeing the world and whatnot, it looks like it's, you know, we're seeing multiple different locales. Here we have kind of the city with like a swamp type area. Back here, I mean, maybe maybe this is the same area. Maybe it's all, but you know, obviously a very different color scheme going on here, a lot more blues and grays. Whereas here we're looking at more browns, yellows, greens. So I don't know if it's just the east side of town versus the west side of town or what. We can see the character going around, vampire-esque actions, getting blood out of stuff, the big gaudy cathedrals, a giant frog with assumedly breasts. So, you know, lots of that typical, like, what the hell are they cooking up here from FromSoftware, which is something I like. This scene in particular, we got basically the crow over here. And it looks like he's summoning somebody. Now, I don't know if that's meant to be cooperative in the sense that you can summon somebody to help, or it's meant to be an NPC that you can summon as you progress through. And hopefully we get some of these questions answered when we learn more about the game on Friday. But I think the big questions I have here is, what is the gameplay session supposed to be? Because this looks, just based on the trailer, it looks very large. And we're seeing full-scale boss fights. You know, this guy in particular. Right here we have our dude, you know, jumping across and shooting people. So I'd assume it's like, you know, you saw somebody and you're like, I gotta kill that guy and get his blood. But so are we looking at an hour playtime? Are we looking at just a world that persists that people can connect to at any time? Because the fact that it says up to 8 players makes me think this will be session based. And frankly, my big concern with session based is, historically, I think most of us can agree that FromSoft doesn't usually have the best connectivity when it comes to multiplayer. And furthermore, Nintendo also does not have the best connectivity when it comes to multiplayer. And pulling those two things together definitely raises cause for concern with the model that they're adopting here. And hopefully my concerns are unfounded. Hopefully, you know, hey, Switch 2 is way better. You know, they've upgraded their netcode or whatever, and everything's going to be gravy smooth and no disconnects. But, you know, I don't know. I don't really play a lot of PvE extraction style games, and to me that's, I mean, there's not really an extraction element here. It seems more like you're progressing to be the one that I assume makes it up and gets the blood to fight the boss. But these games typically have, you know, death is usually the end in these games, and if connectivity is part of death, you know, that's concerning. I think, just based on my past experiences playing games on the Switch and playing FromSoftware titles. Like, you know, imagine you're invading somebody and it disconnects and then it just counts as a death for you. That would be extremely detrimental. So I really hope that we get some more details on how that's going to work. You know, we clearly have mounts. Who was that? Let me see who that was exactly. Was that the... maybe that's the first guy? Either way, I mean, we turned into a T-Rex Velociraptor. That's really cool. You can see it's assumedly a temp transformation because we have the dinosaur top here, but we still have the humanoid type legs. So I'm guessing it's a special ability, kind of similar to what we get when we do bestial incantations in Elden Ring. You know, we have like a whole subway type structure here. There's a lot of unknowns at the moment. I will say the music, obviously very reminiscent of Bloodborne, as well as the setting. And I do think this is going to be a system seller for Nintendo. I mean, like I said at the start, I had zero intention of getting a Switch 2, and this will, I mean, it's FromSoft. I'm going to have to get a Switch 2 now just to play this, if nothing else. But yeah, I mean, we're going to have more details coming Friday, and hopefully they give us an idea on what to expect from the gameplay here. Because the biggest thing is, with this being multiplayer focused, and as I mentioned, given connectivity issues in FromSoft's past titles and the relative inconsistency that we typically see with Nintendo Switch titles, I would be very hopeful that it works out, but also very concerned that there's going to be issues there. But I mean, visually, like this looks, you know, it looks absolutely crazy. You know, we got like this thing over here. It's like Artorias and Manus had a baby together. I mean, look at it, the big wolf head, lots of Artorias vibes, lots of Berserk vibes, whatever you want to say. But from what we're seeing, all of the various models and whatnot do look original. Obviously, you're going to see some very familiar assets looking at previous games and whatnot. And obviously, the texture resolution, being that it's going to be on the Switch. Actually, I'll maybe move the camera a little bit. You can especially see it like over here, you know, whatnot. So we're not going to have the highest textures, and that's to be expected. So hopefully that's not like a huge thing for some people. But, you know, when it comes to FromSoft, I think they always nail art design. I mean, this right here, I think, is a prime example of that. We have this giant cathedral with the broken window up top, with the giant stained glass statues and candles and the lighting and everything. Like, they are, I think, masters of their craft when it comes to environmental design. You got this dude, a little Yoko Taro energy going on, whatever the hell that is. We got spikes coming out of the air. Like, there's so much going on in this trailer that it's hard to really break it down. But in particular, like the big this makes me think of Night Rain. You know, like you're just jumping, you're diving somewhere. We also had the dude that was using the jetpack. So there's a lot cooking here that I think looks really cool. And my big question is going to be just, how does this play? So hopefully we get details regarding that on Friday. More than likely, I'll do a follow-up video based on that interview and the details provided and share that with y'all. But it look cool, and honestly, I'd be willing to bet Sony is probably kicking themselves right now because, like I said, this is absolutely going to be a system seller, I think, for the Switch. I mean, I know the PvE isn't going to appeal to everybody. It doesn't even particularly appeal to me. But I'm a huge fan of FromSoft, so the fact that we're seeing a title that's exclusive to the Switch. Whether that's timed exclusivity or permanent exclusivity, I don't think that's known for the time being, but I would just assume it's exclusive for now, because the Nintendo tends to be, you know, pretty grubby when it comes to not wanting to give their games away. You know, that's kind of funny. I think the exclusivity discussion, you know, we like to always make PlayStation out as the bad guy, because, you know, Xbox shares games and PlayStation doesn't, but like Nintendo don't share shit. Nintendo, you're not seeing Mario anywhere ever. So either way, you know, not a ton of details right now, but definitely something that looks interesting. So I guess we'll find out more on Friday.